I Am Big is about sharing what's working in a big way. Our guest today lives an empowered life. She's here today to share with us her experiences growing up in the foster care system, how she chose to write her own story, and where she is at today. Let us welcome Addie to the I Am Big show. Welcome, Addie. Welcome, Addie, to the I Am Big show.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm fantastic.
It is an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. I see that you have chosen the bubbly sparkling water
Yes.
as your big drink.
I have.
Why is that? Cheers, by the way. Welcome to the show.
Cheers. Thank you. Water is supremely powerful. It's one of the few elements, I guess, I don't know what you would call it, but that it can go from solid to liquid to gas. It's supremely adaptable. It flows around obstacles. Any obstacle that's in its way, it will find its way around it. So, I think water is just the giver of life. It's a healer, but it's also a symbol for me about living an empowered life. And the bubbles are just for fun. I mean, they're sparkly, they're vibrant, they're petulant, and I think that not only should we live empowered lives, but we should live lives full of fun and joy.
So life with empowerment can be fun too.
It should be fun. If it's not fun, it's not empowered.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know that you grew up in the foster care system.
Mm-hmm.
How was your experience growing up? And I know it's a fully loaded question.
Yeah, well, one is I didn't really know that much different. I had 5 sets of parents before the age of 18, some biological, some not. And the experience was, every childhood has moments of fun where you're climbing trees. My favorite place was to sit up in the mango tree during mango season and gorge on mangoes, and I was very happy doing that. But the system itself is also just, it's like a minefield. As a child, you are at the mercy of whoever is making the decisions in your life. And sometimes those can turn out well, but there are many times when those decisions lead to a lot of heartache and pain.
Do you remember any heartache or pain?
Oh, yeah. I think one of the most vivid experiences and memories that I have that I will never forget is just the experience, and this happened a couple of times, when Child Protective Services comes to take you away, and you basically load all of your earthly belongings into a brown paper bag. And you get into a car with a stranger, and then they take you. You don't know where. The most vivid of that experience was when we were taken, and they didn't have a foster home for us, and so we ended up, and the orphanage was full, so we actually ended up in the juvenile detention center. And I was quite young. I was about 4, and it's a very sterile, very steel environment. The boys are separated from the girls, so my 2 brothers went one way, my sister and I went another way, and you're kind of processed as they would process any child. And I just remember coming into an all-steel room, having to be deloused and cleaned. Whether you were clean or not, it didn't matter. This was their process. And then after you go through that process, they let us go out to the playground, and it was a chain link fence, very, very high, with barbed wire around it.
When one describes their childhood, system and process just are words which makes one wonder that I cannot even imagine how it feels to have several different sets of parents. Do you remember, if you were moving from home to home or parents to parents, how did that affect you?
I mean, it depends on the parents and or caregivers at the time. Um, there were some that were more loving than others. I think they all probably meant well and maybe just worked within their limited capacity. But I think that overall the feeling is that there's just no safe place, and there's no one there to protect you from whatever is going on at the time. So you just don't have, a lot of people feel like if they have a bad day at school or someone picks on them, they go home and their parents or their caregivers will comfort them and give them a big hug. And, those were things that were more rare during those periods. Definitely, there were periods of neglect where we didn't have enough food to eat. Yeah, it's something that, as a child, children are very resilient. And by the grace of God, I was born with a very optimistic personality. But, when a child is put in those situations, people think, oh, less of that child, like they have less ability. But the reality is, for a child to survive, and not only survive and then thrive in those situations, they have, skills and talents well beyond what most people do. You figure out ways to get food. You figure out ways to maintain your sanity. You figure out ways to come together with your siblings, or, you're just very, very resourceful.
That's what were you, growing up, my father or my mom used to tell me, well, you're going to grow up and be this, and you can do anything you want, and, we'll support you and stuff like that, even though a lot of people around me didn't. What were the messages you got growing up?
Yeah. There were direct messages and not so direct messages. So the more unspoken message was, you're not worth anything, right? Nobody wants you. You feel abandoned and neglected. And, sitting in a family courtroom where you have social workers and judges making decisions about your life and what's best for you, you feel very powerless, and like you don't really matter. So those aren't necessarily, no one says you don't matter, although actually that can be a direct message too, but definitely the underlying tone is, okay, this is something we need to figure out something to do with and get it out of our way. More directly, I was a very curious child. I always wanted to know how things worked and very precocious, and there were times when people nurtured that and were excited about it, and then there were times when people were not so nurturing, when they would actually say, well, like, don't push it, No one, it was a surprise to them if I did well in school, because nobody expected you to be smart. Like, why? How can you be smart? You're this, So I remember in high school, after I got accepted into the University of Washington, I had an advisor that told me, medicine, science, don't push it. Nobody expected you to get this far, so just don't push it. And even now, coming into graduate and professional school, there are people who said, well, you've had such a successful career. Why do this? You don't need to do this. Maybe they question my capability, my motivations.
So when you were growing up or even in high school, what did you want to do? Did you have an idea?
I think one of the things that I've seen as a common theme among children who grow up in under-resourced, low-resource, disadvantaged settings is you really have a hard time seeing beyond the moment. if you are a hungry child, or you're a child that's in an unsafe situation, or you don't feel like if you're going to have a bed to sleep and a roof over your head that night, then you don't have the ability to look ahead, to even have a dream. So, this idea of daring to dream or having a vision or what do you want to do with your life, it's a question that I myself and many kids don't know how to answer sometimes. But in high school, I was very interested in science, and I knew I really wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference in other people's lives because I knew what it was like to feel alone, to feel abandoned, to feel neglected, to be abused, to feel unloved and unwanted. And I knew that those are supremely human emotions, regardless of what the trigger was that brings them out in other people. And I wanted to try to make the world a better place. There was a specific moment in my life I'll never forget. I didn't feel like I mattered to anyone. And I thought, well, there are really two choices here. I'm either going to live or not. And if I choose life, then that is the choice of saying, I'm going to spend my life dedicated to making the world a better place, to bringing goodness and love into the world, because there's so much negativity, there's so much unlove, ungrace, whether it's bullying, exclusion, people feeling like they don't belong, that they're not worth it. And I just wanted my life to try to counteract that in some way.
What did you do then? You came out of you did high school.
I went to high school. I came out, so I went to university, and again, life is hard. It wasn't a straight path. So even after deciding for myself, this is what I want to do, I was working my way through university. I was in an accident. I was on crutches for a year. I couldn't pay my tuition, so I had to stop for a while, and then I had to go back to work to pay medical bills and slowly work my way through university. I think that what I've learned is, I don't ask why, because why not me? There's no answer to the question, why me? Why not? Why not me and someone else, right? So how can I just make the most of it? And if we choose to live, then I say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with today. How can I pick up the pieces, glue them back together, and continue to move forward toward that horizon? And in the meantime, I have a little sphere of influence. And so whether it's the checkout person in the grocery store, or going to sit and have lunch with people going through dialysis, really where I found my meaning and identity was in connecting with other people and offering love and compassion and dignity and grace to other people. And that's really what's kept me alive all these years, is that connection with other human beings.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. Did you not give up a fairly significantly high-powered job to go and connect with communities worldwide, right?
Well, high-powered is all relative, but
yes. What is high-powered exactly?
But no, I did. I was very fortunate to have a fairly successful career in technology, and I loved it. It was very interesting and fascinating. I got a chance to help design some amazing medical devices that are now all over the world and helping to save lives all over the world, and that was very rewarding. But as much as I really enjoyed business and was so appreciative of that opportunity, I wanted to do more with my life. So I decided to take a sabbatical initially to do humanitarian projects around the world. And, that is so humbling that other people will allow you to come alongside them at what oftentimes can be some of the most vulnerable times in their lives and share themselves with you. And so I traveled to Central and South America and South Africa, East Africa, West Africa. And so, yeah. So whether, I left the high-powered job, and I did leave the job to do these things. Yeah, I guess that's true.
That's beautiful. Question I have, what's amazing is that while growing up, or some of your experiences where you've gotten the messages that you may or may not matter, and then you go out in the world and give a message that each one of you matter. How does one do that when personally that's not been done to you?
I think that I do it because it hasn't been done to me. People are amazing.
I agree.
We are all interconnected, and it's like being open to talk to strangers. It's like walking into an ice cream shop. You never know what flavor you're going to pick, but it's going to be good.
I relate
and
to that.
You hear people's stories and you hear people struggle, and there's so many messages of what you can't be or what you can't do and who you are not. But the reality is, we are all unique. We all have strengths and talents, and it's so important to look beyond what the surface says. I think probably because I know that I am more than what my appearance shows. I have a story, and so what that taught me is so does every other person. You never know what someone's life experience has been.
Thank you. That's I what do I say to that? There are people, all our viewers know that there are very few moments I don't have words. I have nothing really to add to that, because I think I cannot express that the way you did. So what is Addie doing these days?
So what am I doing?
Sell. Sell. We should have a segment called the Sell segment. Okay.
So I'm in medical school. I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to finally pursue something that was a passion of mine for a long time. So for me, it took a little bit longer for me to see that, this passion for medicine, and I almost did everything I could to not go to medical school. I was doing global health projects all over the world, studying medical anthropology, public health, but I realized over time that what I was really doing was working around the periphery of my true passion, which was the practice of medicine. I love science, I love people, and to me, the greatest honor I could ever have is to combine those two passions and offering healing to my patients, one at a time, but also then looking at our greater good in our community and public health, and looking at policy and social justice and health equity as well. I'm the president of the Health Equity Task Force at my medical school, helping people see that, if you cannot separate people from their health, and you can't separate culture from health, then we have to have a whole cultural perspective around justice and equity in health, because every person deserves at least, a minimum of health care, access to health, right? To live a life of well-being that's safe and secure, socially, physically, mentally. And so that's what's keeping me busy these days.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Stay tuned with us as we will be following lovely Addie's lovely work and everything you're doing in your empowered life, and we would love to share more. And tune in to imbigshow.com for more resources which Addie and us have put together for you. Thank you so much. We love you and love you.
Thank you.